So, I'm finally working my way into some of the tougher content Warframe has to offer, diving headfirst into Void Cascades and the Steel Path. But there is more than that to explore. Today I want to have a look into Netracells, as despite looking tough on the outside, I reckon these are actually pretty easy, considering I was able to solo one on my third go. With that being said, there's no need to waste time, so let's go have a look at some Netracells. Considering I'm Master in rank 23 and didn't know about Netracells yet, I'm sure there are players just like me, or even new players unlocking the Sanctum Atomica for the first time who will be looking at Netracells and wondering just what's on offer for them. So, to put things simply, the Netracell is just a vault you'll be looking to break into. If anything, you could actually compare this to the corrupted vaults, as you'll need to bring all 4 keys from the start of the mission to unlock the vault whether you're playing solo or as a team. However, don't be mistaken, despite having similar key mechanics to the corrupted vaults, these will be much tougher, but most certainly reward you a lot better. So, with that being said, let's have a look at what to expect when you jump into a Netracell. Starting off, I think it would be good to cover the quite literal basics of the mission. Heading over to Tagfer in the Sanctum Atomica will allow you to select the Netracells game mode, bringing up a display. And from here is where you'll be greeted with some handy info to help you prepare for the mission. First of all, on the top left you will have search pulses. These reset weekly, granting you 5 pulses, of which you will use 1 upon every successful completion of a Netracell. Something to keep in mind is that these search pulses are also shared with Deep Archimedia and its elite mode too. However, unless you're rank 5 of the Cavia, you won't need to consider this an issue. Moving on from the search pulses, I'll direct your attention to the restrictions for the Netracells. These will attempt to make the Netracells tougher, but they really don't have a major effect on the gameplay. If anything, the main restrictions you'll want to be keeping in the back of your mind when you're playing is that you'll have no self-revive, and your revive timer will decrease each time you go down to a minimum of 5 seconds. This means that if you're particularly prone to dying, you'll want to stick close to your teammates to ensure your survival. Speaking of survival, you'll want to ensure you can cope with the enemies. Unlike Deep Archimedia, you're not locked to using specific warframes or weapons, but you will be posted up against much tougher enemies. Although not quite Steel Path level of tough initially, all enemies in the Netracells will be between level 220 to 240, and on top of this, they will have a base 100% increase in health and shields, which will be increased by 50% per squad member, up to a total of 300%, which will actually exceed the Steel Path difficulty, which is only a 250% increase. However, that just about sums up the basics of Netracells, so let's start having a look at the mechanics. To get started, you'll be dropped into a room to start with, which will have 4 pillars. This is called the Anchor Hold. Each of the 4 pillars will have a terminal to interact with, and this is where you'll collect your keys to open the vault. In terms of the keys, as a solo you will have to collect all 4, but as a team you can split them between yourselves to lighten the workload, as each key will come with its own debuff. I'll pop up a list of the debuffs on screen here to show you, but in all honesty the modifiers are quite easy to deal with. And also, just to make it crystal clear, you'll only have to deal with 1 debuff per key, meaning you won't actually run into all 8 per mission. However, once you've either picked up all 4 keys yourself or spread them through your team, you'll proceed to the POM2 terminal and hack it to get started. This will open up the entrance to the tile set, and you'll have a few waypoints begin showing up on your map. These will also be POM2 terminals that you can use to hack and narrow down the location of the vault. Although it is possible to find the vault without the use of the terminals, it's a lot less hassle just to run over and hack each terminal, especially if this is your first time doing a Netracell. But, as you hack these terminals, you'll start to notice the yellow circle on the map begin to shrink as you narrow down the location, all the way until you hack the 3rd terminal, in which a yellow waypoint will pop up, directing you to the vault's entrance. Quite simply, all you need to do is head to this waypoint and interact with the pillar in the centre of the room. This is why you need to carry all 4 keys either solo or as a team, as there will only be 1 correct key, but there is no way of telling which one it will be. This is where the action begins. Once you insert the correct key, a red circle will appear on your map. This task requires you to lower the Netracell security level, which is reduced by killing enemies within the red circle. On top of this, you'll have 2 events to deal with around the 70 and 35% points on the progress bar. At these points, a Necromite will spawn, halting all progress. All you have to do is run to its waypoint, find the Necromite and kill it, returning to the initial red circle to continue killing enemies. As well as the Necromites, below the 25% point, the enemies will start spawning faster, so just start to keep an eye out for any hordes of enemies. However, once you've gotten the security level low enough, the waypoint to the vault will reappear, and you'll have to interact with it one more time just to open it up and claim your rewards. For the main reward, run up these staircases and destroy the crate in the centre of the room once the platform rises, and otherwise keep an eye out for any other breakables in the area. But that's it. If you'd like, go get started with the mission and have a go, but otherwise you can stick around a bit longer as I'll go over the rewards and also some frame suggestions. So, assuming you stuck around, let's start looking at what rewards you can get from the Netracells. Thankfully, the list of rewards is actually quite small, but it's much more valuable than most game modes, which is why you're restricted to a maximum of 5 runs per week. Within the Netracells, breaking the main cache will give you a guaranteed Entrati Landthorn, and will have a chance to drop any of these items you can see on screen. The Netracells are a great way to get some bonus Archon shards each week outside of the Archon hunt, and on top of that you can also get melee arcane adapters. Not to mention as well, you can get Tailforge Archon shards just at a lower drop chance to their standard counterparts. Just as well, you will also receive 5,000 standing with the Cavia for each completion, which is a nice little bonus to help you rank up your Cavia standing as you play. Otherwise though, I'll move on and start having a look at some Warframes to try out. Now, I think this might become a theme in my videos, but I'll start off by saying your weapons are personal preference. However, it would be a good idea to either swap your builds over to Corrosive from Viral, as the enemies will be resistant to Viral, or you could have it go with Radiation and Electricity, as these are the faction's weaknesses. In particular, the Nucore or the Archiplasma and their variants will be pretty successful in these missions, as both will inflict radiation damage natively. However, looking at Warframes, there is one that stands out in particular for me, and that is Wisp. Whether playing solo or as a team, Wisp is going to make the Netracells a walk in the park, nullifying any damage over time effects from the keys, as well as giving you huge health regen to help keep you alive. Starting with her first ability, Reservoirs. You'll get higher max health, a ton of health regen, movement speed, and increased fire rate on top of the Shock Mite, which can also to some degree help with crowd control. Her second ability, Will-O-Wisp, is great to use as your kind of oh shit button, as you'll send out a copy of Wisp distracting enemy fire, giving you a chance to heal up. And speaking of healing, if you are really struggling while Wisp is airborne, she's effectively invisible to enemies, giving you a chance to recover if you need it. And on top of this, her airborne ability also nullifies the effects of any damage over time from the keys, so as long as you're airborne you don't need to worry about key effects. Next, her third is a great crowd control ability, not only to blind the enemies, but especially if you're struggling for damage. The ability offers a damage multiplier as well as an increased status chance. Finally, she does have a fourth ability, but it's not quite as useful as the rest of her kit. You can mod it to be a great single target killer, but generally speaking you'll be relying on your first 3 abilities a lot more, and will find that your fourth doesn't really get all that much attention. If you're interested, this is the build I'm running in the gameplay in the background. It's really basic, just going for plenty of strength while making sure to keep some range and duration for both the Reservoirs and the Breach Surge. That being said though, Wisp isn't the be all and end all, as you could honestly take most frames into a Netracell without breaking a sweat. Just as long as you're comfortable and are able to ensure survivability remains high enough, then you'll be just fine. But if you're going as a pre-made squad, I can definitely recommend running a lineup that looks something like this. Starting with Wisp of course to help support your team, primarily using her Reservoirs. Secondly, a Speed Nova to help make lowering the security level of the Netracell just a bit faster by speeding up the enemies. Next, you can use Vault for a speed boost while running around looking for the terminals to hack. And finally Saren just for outright damage, using her as the team's killer. With a team lineup like that you won't struggle in the slightest, but for something like cracking open a Netracell, it is really honestly quite hugely overkill. You'll be just fine for the most part with random squads, and you can at least give yourself an easier time if you're using a frame like Wisp, as she's so versatile in these higher level missions. Otherwise, that's it for Netracells. They're really not all that tough despite the higher levels and restrictions on the missions, so you really shouldn't struggle too much making the most of the rewards. But anyway, thanks for watching again, and if you made it this far, I'd love it if you could give me a hand and leave me a like if you found this handy. But until next time, I'll see you later.